Hi, I'm Deanne Criswell, Administrator of the Federal Emergency Management Agency. On October 4th, a test alert message will be sent to cell phones, televisions, and radios across the country at 2:20 p.m. Eastern Time. This is a part of our nationwide test of the wireless emergency alerts and the Emergency Alert System, also known as WEA. We recognize that in disasters, seconds count. Getting alerts out promptly to our communities saves lives. That's why FEMA is working with the Federal Communications Commission and your local public safety authorities on this test. We want to make sure that when it counts, we can keep you informed. Wireless providers that participate in WEA are required to deliver this test message, which will be accompanied by a unique tone and vibration. The test message will read, "This is a test of the National Wireless Emergency Alert System. No action is needed." The message will also display in Spanish for phones configured for that language. TV and radio broadcasters are required to deliver these test messages with a similar tone to the ones they use in their monthly tests. So please, watch and listen for wireless emergency alerts on your mobile phones and EAS alerts on your televisions and radios. The next alert you receive could save your life or the life of ones you love.
Welcome to the Island Podcast. I am your host, Alvis Samuel, and that was Deanne Criswell, the big-time administrator for FEMA, talking about October 4th. You know, that's the hot topic that's going around right now is this October 4th. But let me help people out and go through all of this. And I'm not saying this is or it's not. I'm not saying that. But there's a striking resemblance, at least in my mind, that actually occurs with something that goes on in the Bible. Then those who know and have read this story in the Bible, you will also understand what I am talking about once I get into that part. But it all goes into this October 4th, and you can find that video, pictures and video and all, on the FEMA website. They have it there. You can see her face and all of that good junk. And then you can also click on it and you'll find out a little bit more information that deals with October 4th. This testing is supposedly supposed to last for about 30 minutes. And you're only going to receive this information one time, a specific vibration. That's what I'm going to allude to on this entire episode. It's not a normal one because we all know the normal sounds and vibrations of every emergency broadcast that goes across basically the entire nation, your city. We've heard them on the radios, AM, FM radio, on the television. They do that long beep and then they tell you what's going on. Well, this one's going to have the same thing, but it's going to be specifically in tune with something different. Now, I will go into a lot of conspiracy theories when it comes to this, but it all goes into something that ties in to what the book of Daniel, that's in the Bible for those who don't know, it happens in the book of Daniel. This is what I'm going to be talking about on the island. Again, welcome to the Island Podcast. I'm your host, Alvis Samuel, and let's just go right ahead and jump into it. So, I want to start off by reading to everyone the story that I'm talking about in the book of Daniel. You'll find this in Daniel chapter 3. So this will be from beginning to end. That way, it's already in your mind that you will have a sense of what I am talking about when it comes to this October 4th testing supposed. Again, I am not saying this is or this is not, but this needs to be in everyone's mind. So let's get into the chapter. Again, this is Daniel chapter 3. Nebuchadnezzar, the king, made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits and its width 6 cubits. He set it up in a plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. And King Nebuchadnezzar sent word to gather together the satraps, the administrators, the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the judges, the magistrates, and all the officials of the province to come to the dedication of the image which King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So the satraps, the administrators, the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the judges, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces gathered together for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald cried aloud, "To you it is commanded, O peoples, nations, and languages, that at the time you hear the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, and psaltery, in the symphony with all kinds of music, you shall fall down and worship the gold image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast immediately into the midst of the burning fiery furnace." So at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, and symphony with all kinds of music, all the people, nations, and languages fell down and worshiped the gold image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Therefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came forward and accused the Jews. They spoke and said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, and psaltery, and symphony with all kinds of music shall fall down and worship the gold image. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego. These men, O king, have not paid due regard to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the gold image which you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar, in rage and fury, gave the command to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego. So they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the gold image which I have set up? Now, if you are ready at the time you hear the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, and psaltery in symphony, with all kinds of music, and you fall down, worship the image and which I have made, good. But if you do not worship, you shall be cast immediately into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you from my hands?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego answered and said to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If that is the case, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we do not serve your gods, nor will we worship the gold image which you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar was full of fury, and the expression on his face changed towards Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego. He spoke and commanded that they heat the furnace 7 times more than it was usually heated. And he commanded certain mighty men of valor who were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego and cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats, their trousers, their turbans, and their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's command was urgent and the furnace exceedingly hot, the flames of the fire killed those men who took Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished, and he rose in haste and spoke, saying to the counselors, "Did we not cast three men bound into the midst of the fiery furnace?" They answered and said to the king, "True, O king." "Look," he answered, "I see four men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the form of the fourth is like the Son of God." Then Nebuchadnezzar went near the mouth of the burning fiery furnace and spoke, saying, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here." Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came from the midst of the fire, and the satraps, administrators, governors, and the king's counselors gathered together, and they saw these men on whose bodies the fire had no power. The hair of their head was not singed, nor were their garments affected, and the smell of the fire was not on them. Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying, "Blessed be the king of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, their God, who sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him, and they have frustrated the king's word and yielded their bodies that they should not serve nor worship any god except their own God. Therefore, I make a decree that any people, nation, or language that speaks anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut into pieces, and their houses shall be made an ash heap, because there is no other God who can deliver like this." Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. So that is the entire story. It's not the entire story, but it is a story in the book of Daniel, when an image was created to make everybody stop at what they are doing and to begin to worship this image that the king had made. And how they knew when they were supposed to stop what they were doing and worship was a sound, a specific type of sound was heard throughout the entire land. Everyone heard the sound at once, and everyone had to stop what they were doing at that time and do what the king told them to do, which was kneel down and worship this image. It doesn't matter where you're at. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care how it's going to affect you. You better stop and worship. Now, that's not the part I want to hash into, deeply dive into. I'm going to deeply dive into the sound and what people had to do once they heard it. Well, so I guess I am going to dive into that a little bit. But more in particular, I want to dive into the sound that's going to be heard all around the nation of the United States, all at one time, and everyone is going to hear this sound. So I'm going to stop right there and express to everyone what I truly think they should do before I hash into all of this stuff, jump into everything. What I would like everyone to do is not freak out, because that's the whole thing that's going on. People are starting to freak out. Just so you know, there is a second date that if it doesn't go according to plan, they're going to have a second date already in there. You can find the second date on the FEMA website. It's October the 11th. So there's two dates if the first date doesn't work out. The second is going to be October the 11th. That one nobody is talking about. Everyone's talking about and trying to sound the horn on just October 4th. But it doesn't matter. They might do both days. They might do no days. They might just use one of the 2 days. I don't know. It doesn't matter. What really matters is everyone is going to hear this specific, it's a specific sound and vibration that's going to be heard all around this entire nation. And you will have to stop what you're doing and pay attention to either turn it off, turn your phone off, and all that stuff. So I'm wanting everyone to not turn their phone off. Because that's what some people are telling everyone. Turn your phone off, throw it somewhere. I'm saying don't do that. What I am saying is leave it on and just pay no attention to it. Hear the sound. Hear it. That way you know what it sounds like. You will know this is the sound they're trying to make me stop what I am doing to pay more attention to whatever's going on my phone. And as I say that, my phone goes off. That's crazy. Anyways, let's keep going. So with that being said, I am telling everybody, yes, be cautious on everything, but don't just chunk your phone somewhere, use some sort of weird device or some sort of foil, put your phone in some foil, unplug your microwave and throw it inside the microwave and then leave it off. Like, don't do that stuff. That's not what I'm saying. And especially if you are a person who is a true believer in Jesus Christ, then you know that his power will outdo the power of your phone. I hope you know that. I hope you understand that. So I'm not saying just don't pay any attention to it. Make some sort of cautionary whatever. Just be cautious of what's going on around you so you don't get caught up into something, but don't freak out over this. Just do what you normally do throughout your normal day. And honestly, pay no attention to it unless something happens and then you have to start paying attention. But I am saying that because I think everybody needs to hear this sound, so they will know and understand the sound that's going to make everybody stop in their tracks. Just like what King Nebuchadnezzar did in his kingdom of Babylon. Everybody heard the sound, this specific sound, everything in harmony, everything in a specific vibration. And once they heard it, you stopped and you worshiped. Everybody. Those who did not, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abed-Nego, those who did not, they still heard the sound. They didn't do something to where they couldn't hear it. They heard the sound. They just didn't care for it. There's a big difference. In other words, don't give yourself an excuse that if something does happen, you don't hear the sound. And then you have the excuse of ignorance. Oh, I didn't hear the sound, so I couldn't do anything. And I just went on with my day. Again, I'm going to reference one of my favorite quotes in a semi-good movie, that Superman movie with Henry Cavill, when he says, Henry Cavill doesn't say it, but one of the bad guys says it, but it's a true statement. Ignorance does not mean you are innocent. So don't be ignorant to the sound. Hear it, understand it, know what it sounds like. But that doesn't mean stop and pay homage to it. So that's my advice. You don't have to take it. You don't have to do what I say. You don't have to. But however, this October 4th, maybe even October 11th thing that is going to happen inside the United States of America, to me has some very startling similarities to what happened in Babylon when it came to King Nebuchadnezzar and his image. This image will be your phone. Everybody has a phone for the most part. Everyone has a phone. And if you don't have a phone, then you have a television because it's going to go across your television also. And if you don't have a television, I'm pretty sure you might even have a laptop because it's going to go across all of it Even some people say it's going to go across anything that's connected to 5G, your Wi-Fi stuff. So that might be even some people's refrigerators, some people's microwaves. It doesn't matter. If some sort of radio wave can hit it through this network, it will go off. So it's going to give no excuses to anybody. I don't care if you decide to throw your phone in a ditch, turn it off, throw your phone in a ditch and put the dirt back on it and bury it. And you're going to go, I'm going to pay no attention to it. I'm just going to go out to eat. And when you go out to eat, you sit down or whatever you're going to do, if somebody else's phone goes off. So there's going to be no excuses. However, you need to hear it. That way you know. That way you can have some sort of understanding on what it actually sounds like and not be one of those people when they had this test where people were just standing up and down when they heard a specific sound in a doctor's office. It was a test, a scientific test on how people react to things. They had a bunch of actors in there. And when a sound went off, everybody stood up. Everybody in there was an actor but one person. The one person was a normal person. They heard the sound, everybody stood up. The one person who didn't know what was going on stayed seated, but looked around. Then everybody sat back down. Then all of a sudden it did it again, and everybody kept doing it. Then eventually that one person started standing up with everybody else through their ignorance on what was going on. They just wanted to be a part of what was going on. And one by one, the actors left, and every time an actor left, a normal person came in who was not an actor, and they felt the same way. Eventually, there was no actors in there, but all normal people. And still, when the sound went off, they all stood up through their ignorance. So again, I ask, and I would say, do not turn your sound off because you might get caught into something through your ignorance and still react in the same way that they want you to react in just because you are ignorant to the fact of never hearing the sound, but yet you see everybody acting a certain way. So you yourself start to act that same way. Again, I'm not saying this is what's going to happen. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying there's startling similarities that is going to happen on October 4th and or on October the 11th that is very similar to the story in Daniel. That is the image, which is your phone, your electronic devices. You will have it. And then when the sound will go off, it will be in your hand. You will acknowledge it. And then when the sound goes off, what will you do after that? That is the part that I am going to hash on, that I'm going to put a lot of focus on. What are you going to do after that? Are you going to trust what the government tells you to do? Or are you going to trust, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego did, in God? They weren't ignorant to the sound, but they refused to pay any homage to what the government told them to do, regardless of how they would be treated afterwards. And not only were they treated harshly, they were put up to be killed. The actions to kill them went forth, so much that the king killed everyone around them too because of his own actions. And then something startling happened. They were saved to the point where not even the fire, I'm going to say it again, not even the fire that surrounded them touched them in any sense. To even the smell of the fire wasn't even on them. How many people can say, I was around fire, very close to this fire, and I didn't even smell like the fire? That is unheard of. If you get by any type of fire close to it, you're going to get away from that fire smelling like the fire, feeling the flames, feeling the hotness. It's going to make you jump a little bit. It's going to make your hair stand up. And if you get too close, it's going to burn you. At least the hairs. But with these three, it did nothing to them. They went in smelling a certain way and came out smelling that same way. They went in looking a certain way and came out that same way, if not better. Obviously, they came out better because they went inbounded and came out free. That is the part that I think people need to think on. Now, like I said, there are some conspiracy theories that are out there. And you know me, I love my conspiracy theories. I do. I enjoy them so much. I say that somewhat sarcastically, but I kind of do. Some of them are funny. So I'm going to go through one of these because it's interesting and funny and still interesting in the same way. One of them deals with the 5G. And I forgot the name. I think it's like a Tesla Aura or Tesla Net or something like that. Tesla Net or whatever. But basically, they're microscopic fibers that when a specific vibration, they're very small. You can't even see them unless there's a bunch of them together. And even when there's a bunch of them together in one spot, it just looks like a pile of dust that can easily be moved with just the breath of air. However, if there's a specific vibration in the area, there's something startling that happens with these microscopic fibers. They begin to connect and make wires that connect to something. What is that something? We don't know yet. You can actually look all of this up and you'll find it. You'll find it and you'll be just as I was when I saw it. I was like, wow, that's some crazy technology. I didn't say awesome. I said crazy. Because when you have technology that's like that, it's crazy. It can be awesome if it's used in the right way. But when was the last time any human had this type of technology and it was awesome technology that everyone was in awe? Or did someone come along and grab that technology and did something crazy with it? Now, here is the conspiracy part. They say that this stuff is waterproof. These little microscopic little dust particles or whatever, that when this vibration goes, they connect to each other and they create wiring, a wiring system. They say that you can put this thing into some sort of, dare I say, vaccination, and the watering system of the vaccination will have no effect to it, so much that you can even jab yourself and eject it into your body, and even your own blood will do absolutely nothing to these microscopic wires. I don't know why it's so hard for me to say that, but it is for some odd reason. But these microscopic wiring system. And like I said, if you find the video, once this vibration, this specific vibration goes off, it will still work and connect inside your own body. So we can put 2 to 2 together with this conspiracy theory that maybe something else that was put in a specific vaccination, if not maybe more different types of vaccination, I don't know. Just maybe there was this thing put inside of this vaccination, injected into people's bodies. And now they're just waiting for a specific vibration heard all around the world. Now, I'm sorry, I said world, the United States of America. Heard all around the nation. And when the vibration and when the sound goes off, it doesn't matter where you are, it will start to connect. And now they have a wiring system inside people's bodies when the vibration goes off. What are these wires going to be connected to? What's the other part of this technology that people need to get? We can make assumptions. We can start guessing and play the guessing game. But I'm not. I'm just throwing that conspiracy nugget out there. Now, I say this stuff knowing that on one platform, that's YouTube, because this is heard on the YouTube stuff, that I will get, what is it, canceled, demonetized, whatever that crap's called. There's a chance that it will happen. And I personally am one who does not care if I get demonetized, is that right? Or canceled off of the YouTube. I don't care. Because you can hear me on other platforms. So I personally do not care. So I'm going to say things how I mean to say them. So when I say vaccinations, I mean vaccinations. There's nothing, I'm not going to hide it. If I mention COVID and I mention COVID vaccinations and I get kicked off of a platform because of my way of thinking, which is kind of, it kind of goes against the United States Constitution. We don't want you saying this, so we're going to cancel you and kick you off until you say it the way we want you to say it. It kind of infringes on my rights to say things. Now, that also goes into hand, if I think about it, also goes in the hands. You can say whatever you want, but that doesn't mean there's not consequences for what you say. So, yeah, but either way, I don't truly care if I get kicked off of YouTube or any other platform for that matter. You can just go to my website, that is rss.com/podcast/The Island. And you can listen to everything there, everything that's been canceled, everything that's been redacted from other places. Just go there. You'll listen to everything. You can hear it all in its entirety. But anyways, off of that crap, just understand how similar this October 4th stuff is with the story in the book of Daniel, chapter 3, in King Nebuchadnezzar and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego. Very eerie, if I would say. Eerie similar. And then the bell was rung. And once it's rung, you cannot undo the sound. So I'm putting this story out there just as a nugget to see what might actually happen. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm also not saying I'm wrong. I'm not saying that this is exactly what's going on, but I'm also not saying it's not going to happen. I am just saying that I find this very, very similar to what happened during the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar in the mighty country of Babylon at that time. There is something that I would recommend to everyone listening to this podcast. And it could be fun. It could be very fun. But I would highly recommend this after listening to this podcast. There is a series. It's a movie series and a book series. But for those who don't want to read the book, I would recommend watching the movie, the series called Divergent. If I'm not mistaken, it's a 3, maybe 4 movie series. And I've watched it a few times, mainly with my wife. And we just recently watched it. And I watched it because I had a feeling that I should watch it. And this was maybe a month and a half ago. And we watched the entire series again. And as I'm watching the series, I start hearing all these other podcasts like Glenn Beck and people like him, even Joe Rogan and Russell Brand. They all start talking about everyone should watch or rewatch the series of what is it? Mockingjay, Hunger Games. There we go, Hunger Games. Everybody should rewatch that. But I had the feeling it's not Hunger Games that everybody should be watching or rewatching. It's this series called Divergent. I would highly recommend everyone watch that series over Hunger Games. And then you will also see in that some very eerie similarities that's actually going on inside the United States right now. Not Hunger Games. Again, not The Hunger Games. You can, if you want to watch that, go for it, knock yourself out. I like that series too. But the series of Divergent, the movie series, watch them all. And then you might start connecting a lot of dots with what has happened in that series and what is going on right now. Again, that's just a recommendation. You don't have to do it. However, just start connecting dots on the things that are actually going on. And then after you start connecting dots, I would also recommend go to the Bible and understand and read it, and you might find some very eerie similarities that has already happened on this planet that nobody, and that includes your churches and these television Christians, that they do not want to talk about. Or if they do, they only want to talk about something else in that story. Like everyone's heard of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego. Everyone's heard that in that story when they got into the fiery furnace and they weren't burned. And the fourth man, and that fourth man was Jesus himself. That is, the Bible doesn't say that. The Bible just says there was a fourth figure. However, that's the part that everybody wants to talk about. No one wants to really talk about the image and then the sound that forced everybody to talk. Or not talk, that forced everybody to worship and to stop what they were doing to do what the king told them to do. Nobody wants to talk about that side of the story. And then they don't want to talk about even the side that even Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego, all three of them, heard the sound. They didn't do something to where they could not hear the sound. They heard the sound. They knew what the sound was and they knew what it sounded like. They just didn't care they just didn't care to do what King Nebuchadnezzar told them to do. They weren't going to do it. And when they were questioned about it, they said to the king's face, "We're not going to do it. So do what you want to us right now. Don't waste any more time." That's the part that not a lot of people want to talk about. Again, hear the sound. Do not be ignorant to the sound. Know what it sounds like and understand the sound. That is my recommendation. That is my advice. Take it or leave it. Doesn't matter. But I am one who does connect dots and does look for the story within the story to see if there's something similar that has already happened in the past. And it's just repeating itself again. Do not be ignorant. Know and have understanding, knowledge, because once you get those two things, wisdom follows right after. Just go to rss.com/podcast/the island, and there you will find the donation button. Click on that, and it'll lead you wherever you want to go. And again, thank you for listening to The Island Podcast with your host, Alvis Samuel.